The orbital station floated like a crystal palace among the stars. Inside its grand halls, representatives from two civilizations gathered for the first time in peace. Captain Kang Tae-min stood at attention near the entrance, his dark uniform pressed and perfect. He watched the crowd with careful eyes, his hand never far from his sidearm. This was the most important day in human history, and he was just another guard in the background. Tae-min had seen too much war to believe in easy peace. 10 years of fighting had carved lines into his young face. He was only 32, but his eyes looked much older. The battles, the lost friends, the impossible choices, they all lived in his memory, refusing to fade. He shook his head slightly. Today was not for remembering. Today was for hoping. The announcement echoed through the hall. The Valerian delegation was arriving. Tae-min straightened his posture and watched the massive doors slide open. First came the guards, tall beings in armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Then came the advisors, their skin glowing faintly with bioluminescence. And finally, she entered. Princess Lythara of the Valerian Empire stepped into the hall, and the room seemed to hold its breath. She was tall and graceful, moving as if gravity touched her differently than everyone else. Her skin was silver, smooth as polished stone, and her eyes were the color of deep space, purple and blue swirling like distant nebulae. Her hair, if it could be called that, floated around her head like strands of starlight. She wore robes that seemed to be made from the night sky itself. Tae-min stared. He could not help it. Something about her face pulled at his mind like a word he could not quite remember. Had he seen her before? Oh, that was impossible. He had fought Valerians during the war, but he had never been this close to one. Certainly not royalty. Lythara walked down the center of the hall, her attendants following behind. Diplomats from Earth bowed. She acknowledged them with small nods, her expression calm and regal. But then her eyes swept across the room, scanning the faces of the human security team. When her gaze found Tae-min, she stopped walking, just for a moment. Just long enough that her closest advisor looked at her with concern. But Lythara's eyes were locked on Tae-min's face. Something flickered across her expression. Surprise? Recognition? Fear? Tae-min could not tell. Their species were too different. He did not know how to read her. Then the moment passed. Lythara continued walking, taking her place at the high table where the negotiations would begin. But Tae-min noticed that she glanced back at him twice more during the opening speeches. His heart beat faster. What had just happened? The ceremony continued for hours. Speeches about peace, about cooperation, about the future. Tae-min tried to focus on his duty, scanning the crowd for threats. But his eyes kept drifting back to the princess. Each time he found her already looking at him. It was unsettling. When the formal proceedings finally ended, the delegates moved to a reception area. Tae-min and the other guards took positions around the room's perimeter. He tried to blend into the background, to be invisible as a good soldier should, but he felt her attention on him like a physical weight. Captain Kang Tae-min. The voice came from behind him. He turned sharply to find a Valerian advisor standing there, her expression unreadable. Her Highness Princess Lythara requests a private word with the human security detail. She wishes to discuss protocol concerns. Tae-min's superior officer, Captain Baek Hwan, stepped forward. Of course, we are at Her Highness's service. They were led to a smaller chamber off the main hall. The room was elegant but simple, with windows looking out at the endless stars. Princess Lythara stood with her back to them, staring out at the void. When they entered, she turned slowly. "Leave us," she said to her advisors. They hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but obeyed. Captain Hwan started to protest, but Lythara raised a hand. "Please, I mean no disrespect, but I must speak with this officer alone." She pointed directly at Tae-min. Hwan looked at Tae-min with confusion and concern. But the princess was royalty, and this was a peace summit. Refusing could cause an incident. 5 minutes, Hwan said firmly. "We will be right outside." The door closed. Tae-min stood at attention, his mind racing. What could an alien princess possibly want with him? Had he done something wrong? Was this some kind of test? Lythara moved closer, studying his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. She was taller than him by a few inches, and her eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost fragile. "Your face," she said. "I know your face." Tae-min kept his expression neutral. "I do not believe we have met, Your Highness." "No," she agreed. "We have not met." Not formally, but I have seen you before. In a moment I thought was a dream. She circled him slowly like she was examining an artifact in a museum. Tell me, Captain, during the war were you ever near the Crucible Nebula? The question hit Taemin like a physical blow. His carefully controlled expression cracked. The Crucible Nebula, the worst battle of the war, the place where he had lost everyone, where he had nearly died himself, drifting in the wreckage watching his oxygen levels fall toward zero. Yes, he said quietly, I was there. Lithara stopped moving. She stood directly in front of him now, close enough that he could see the tiny patterns of light that moved beneath her silver skin. You were in a damaged fighter, life support failing. You should have escaped, but you did not. Taemin's throat tightened. How could she know this? That mission was classified. The records were sealed. I do not understand. You intercepted a Valerian escape pod, Lithara continued, her voice growing stronger. It was caught in a gravity well, falling into a dying star. You used your last fuel to save it. You shared your oxygen with the person inside even though they were your enemy. You kept them alive for 3 days until rescue came. The memories flooded back, the desperate calculations, the choice that defied all logic. The small broken figure inside the pod barely breathing. He had not thought about that in years. He had tried not to think about it. How do you know that? Taemin whispered. Lithara's eyes began to glow brighter and he realized she was crying. Tears of light rolled down her silver cheeks. Because I was in that pod, Captain Kang Taemin. I was the one you saved. The one you should have left to die. The room seemed to spin. Taemin took a step back, his mind refusing to accept what she was saying. That injured Valerian had been a child, barely conscious. He had never seen her face clearly through the damaged pod's window. He had never known if she survived after the fleet separated them. You, he breathed. It was you. Lithara nodded, fresh tears falling. For 10 years I have searched for the human who saved my life. For 10 years I have dreamed of thanking you. I thought you died in that battle. But here you are, standing before me, the man who taught me that even in the darkest moment of war, compassion can survive. She reached out slowly, giving him time to step away if he wished. When he did not move, she placed her hand over his heart. Even through his uniform, he could feel the warmth of her touch. You saved my life once, she said, and in doing so you saved so much more. You just do not know it yet. That night, Taemin could not sleep. He lay in his small quarters aboard the station, staring at the ceiling, remembering things he had tried to forget. The Battle of Crucible Nebula had been hell, pure burning hell among the stars. He had been 22 then, a young lieutenant who still believed war could be won cleanly. His squadron had flown into an ambush. The Valerian fleet had been waiting, hidden in the nebula's thick clouds of gas and dust. What was supposed to be a simple patrol became a massacre. One by one, his teammates had died, their voices cutting out over the radio, their ships exploding into brief stars. Taemin's fighter took a hit that tore through the engine compartment. He spun out of control, deeper into the nebula, systems failing, emergency lights flashing red. By the time he stabilized, everyone was gone. Both fleets had retreated, taking their wounded and leaving their dead. Taemin was alone in the debris field, his ship barely alive, his oxygen running low. He had started recording goodbye messages to his family when his damaged sensors picked up something. A signal. Faint and desperate. A distress beacon. The smart thing would have been to ignore it. Save his power. Hope for rescue. But Taemin had pulled up the signal details and seen the bio readings. One life sign. Young. Injured. Dying. Even now, lying in his bunk 10 years later, Taemin could not explain why he did what he did next. Maybe he was in shock. Maybe he was tired of death. Maybe he just needed to save someone, anyone, after watching his whole squadron die. Whatever the reason, he had fired his maneuvering thrusters and gone after that signal. The escape pod had been Valerian design, small and egg-shaped, tumbling toward the gravity well of a collapsing star. It had no power left, no way to escape. Taemin had matched velocity, his fighter's computer screaming warnings about fuel and structural stress. He had extended his manual tether, an old-fashioned cable that most pilots never even used, and hooked the pod. Getting it free of the gravity well had taken everything his ship had left. Every last drop of fuel, every bit of power. When it was done, both vessels were drifting dead in space. But they were drifting away from the star, not into it. Taemin had connected his life support system to the pod through the tether cable. It was never designed for that, but he made it work. He always made things work. The pod's occupant was using his oxygen now. He had cut his own supply in half to keep them both alive. Through the pod's small, cracked window, he had seen her. A young Valerian girl, maybe 16 or 17 by their aging. She was unconscious, her silver skin pale and flickering weakly. Blood darker than human blood stained her clothes. She looked so small, so fragile. Taemin had talked to her, even though she could not hear him. He told her stories about Earth, about his home, about anything to keep himself awake as the oxygen levels dropped. He told her she was going to be okay. He promised her that someone would find them. He did not know if he was lying. 3 days they drifted together. 3 days of cold and darkness and fading air. Taemin's lips had turned blue. His thoughts became fuzzy. He started seeing things that were not there. But he kept checking on her, kept adjusting the life support connection, kept making sure she was still breathing. On the 3rd day, the rescue ships arrived. Both human and Valerian vessels searching the battlefield for survivors. They must have detected the pod's beacon. The Valerian cruiser got there first. Taemin remembered the shock on the Valerian crew's faces when they saw what he had done. A human fighter tethered to their escape pod, sharing life support. It made no sense. They were enemies. He should have left her to die, or killed her himself, but he had not. And now she was alive because of him. The Valerians had taken the pod and its precious cargo. They had not shot Taemin, which surprised him. Instead, they had sent a signal to the human fleet with his location. 20 minutes later, a human rescue ship had picked him up, half dead from oxygen deprivation and hypothermia. His captain had asked him what happened. Taemin told the truth. He had saved an enemy combatant. His captain had looked at him for a long moment, then classified the entire mission. No record, no report, no questions. Just a note in Taemin's file that he had been recovered from the Crucible battle. Taemin had never known what happened to the girl in the pod. He assumed she had died, maybe from her injuries, maybe later in the war. He had tried not to think about it, tried not to wonder if he had wasted his squadron's sacrifice on a pointless gesture. But she had lived, she had survived. And she was a princess. A knock on his door pulled Taemin from his memories. He sat up, checking the time. 3 in the morning, station time. Who would visit now? He opened the door to find Lithara standing in the corridor alone. She wore simpler clothes than before. A dark robe that covered most of her glowing skin. She looked tired. Scared even. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I should not be here. But I could not sleep. I needed to talk to you." Taemin stepped aside, letting her enter. It was against protocol. If anyone found out, there would be consequences. But he found he did not care. "Neither could I," he admitted. They sat across from each other in his tiny quarters, the space barely large enough for 2 people. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lithara broke the silence. "I remember very little from the battle," she said softly. "I was on a diplomatic shuttle, traveling to neutral space for training. We were attacked by mistake. Both sides thought we were the other's reinforcements. The shuttle was destroyed. I made it to an escape pod, but it was damaged. I was falling. I remember the heat from the star. I remember thinking I would die alone in the dark." She looked at him, her swirling eyes full of emotion. "Then I saw a light. Your fighter. I did not understand what was happening. Why would a human help me? But I felt the pod jerk. Felt us moving away from the star. I tried to stay awake, but I was too hurt. The last thing I saw was your face through the window. You were smiling at me, even though you were clearly dying too. You smiled." Taemin remembered that smile. It had been a reflex, something his mother taught him. Smile at people who are scared. It helps them feel less alone. "When I woke up," Lithara continued, "I was in a Valerian medical ship. They told me I almost did not make it. They told me about the human fighter that saved me. My father wanted to know your name. He wanted to thank you. But your military would not release the information. Classified, they said. They were trying to protect me," Taemin said. "If word got out that I saved a Valerian, some humans would call me a traitor. Some would say I betrayed my squadron." "Did you?" Lithara asked. "Do you regret it?" Taemin thought about his answer carefully. "No," he said finally. "I saw someone who needed help. In that moment you were not a Valerian. You were not the enemy. You were just a kid who was going to die if I did nothing. I could not live with that. Lithara smiled and it transformed her face. That is what makes humans special, she said. You feel things so strongly. Empathy, compassion, even when it is illogical. Even when it costs you everything. Is that why you pushed for peace? Taemin asked. She nodded. After you saved me, I could not see your people as monsters anymore. I kept thinking, if one human would do that, maybe others would too. Maybe this war was wrong. Maybe we were all wrong. I spent years convincing my father, the council, anyone who would listen. I told them what you did. I told them that peace was possible. So this summit, Taemin said slowly, understanding dawning. This happened because you saved me, Lithara finished. Yes, every step toward peace started with your choice in the Crucible Nebula. You changed everything, Kang Taemin, and you did not even know it. The next morning, Captain Bai Quan pulled Taemin aside before the day's meetings began. His expression was serious, almost angry. What did the princess want with you yesterday? Quan asked. Taemin had prepared for this question. She recognized me from the war. From Crucible. I saved a Valerian during that battle. Apparently it was her. Juan's eyes widened. The classified mission. The one with no details in your file. He ran a hand through his hair, looking stressed. Taemin, do you understand what this means? A connection between you and Valerian royalty could compromise the entire summit. There are people on both sides who want this peace to fail. I understand, sir. Stay away from her, Juan ordered. That is not a request. Whatever happened in the past, it stays in the past. We cannot afford complications. But staying away from Lithara proved impossible. Later that day, Taemin was reassigned. Instead of general security, he was now part of the princess's personal protection detail. The order came from high up, from someone in Earth's diplomatic corps. Juan had protested, but he was overruled. Someone wants you close to her, Juan said grimly. I do not know if they are trying to help you or set you up. Be careful. Taemin took his new position seriously. He stood outside meeting rooms while Lithara negotiated with human diplomats. He walked 3 steps behind her when she moved through the station. He was professional, distant, speaking only when necessary. But Lithara kept trying to talk to him. Small comments. Questions about Earth, observations about the station. She was testing him, he realized, trying to see if he would respond. On the 3rd day, she turned to him suddenly in an empty corridor. Her guards were at the other end, out of earshot. You are avoiding me, she said. I am doing my job, Your Highness. Do not call me that, she said, frustration in her voice. My name is Lithara. Use it. That would not be appropriate. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. In my culture, when someone saves your life, you owe them a life debt. It is the highest honor, the strongest bond. You gave me my life, Taemin. Everything I am, everything I will ever be exists because of you. I cannot simply ignore that. You do not owe me anything, Taemin said firmly. What I did because it was right, not because I wanted something in return. I know, Lithara said softly. That is exactly why the debt exists. You expected nothing. That makes it more valuable. Before Taemin could respond, her communicator chimed. A message. She read it, and her silver skin seemed to pale. Her hand trembled. What is it? Taemin asked, his soldier instincts alert. Lithara showed him the screen. The message was short and brutal. Stop the peace talks or die. You are not safe. Neither is your human pet. Taemin's blood ran cold. We need to report this immediately. No, Lithara said quickly. If we report it, my father will pull me from the summit. He will say it is too dangerous. The negotiations will stop. That is what they want. They also want you dead, Taemin pointed out. This is a credible threat. Then protect me, Lithara said, looking directly into his eyes. That is your job now, is it not? Keep me safe while I finish what we started 10 years ago in the Crucible. Taemin wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. If Lithara left, the summit would collapse. Too much depended on her presence. Fine, he said. But from now on, I do not leave your side. And you tell me everything. Every threat, every suspicious contact, everything. Lithara nodded. Agreed. The threats continued over the next few days. Messages. Strange packages left at her door. Once, a security drone malfunctioned near her quarters, its weapons powering up before Taemin destroyed it. Each incident was carefully designed to look like an accident or a prank. Nothing serious enough to justify canceling the summit, but together they painted a clear picture. Someone wanted Lithara dead and they were getting bolder. Taimin barely slept. He checked her rooms multiple times each night. He had his friend, Lieutenant Choi Dae-hyun, run background checks on everyone who came near her. He tasted her food before she ate. He was exhausting himself, and Lithara noticed. "You cannot keep doing this," she said one evening. "You will collapse." "I have gone longer without sleep during the war," Taemin said, though his eyes were red and his hands shook from too much caffeine. "This is not the war," Lithara said gently. "And I am not a mission. I am a person, one who cares what happens to you." Taemin looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the concern in her alien features. When had she stopped being just a princess to him? When had she become Lithara? "I cannot lose you again," he said quietly. "Once was enough. In the crucible, I thought you might die while I was trying to save you. That fear. I do not want to feel it again." Lithara reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm. Warmer than human skin, and it pulsed gently with light. "Then let me help you. 2 people watching for danger are better than 1. The garden reception was scheduled for the 5th day of the summit. It was meant to be a casual event, a chance for diplomats from both sides to mingle without the pressure of negotiations. The station's botanical dome was beautiful, filled with plants from a dozen worlds. Taemin did not like it. Too many plants meant too many hiding spots. Too many guests meant too many potential threats. He stayed close to Lithara, scanning the crowd constantly. She was talking with a human ambassador about agricultural exchanges when Taemin saw it. A movement in the shadows. A figure raising something that caught the light. A weapon. Taemin did not think. He moved on pure instinct, honed by years of combat. He grabbed Lithara and pulled her down just as the air where she had been standing exploded with energy. The weapon was some kind of plasma rifle modified to be silent. The shot burned through a decorative tree, leaving a smoking hole. Screams filled the garden. Security rushed forward. But the shooter was already running, disappearing into the panicked crowd. Taemin covered Lithara with his body, shielding her from any additional shots. His heart pounded. His training said to pursue the attacker, but every instinct said to protect her first. "Are you hurt?" he asked urgently. Lithara shook her head, her eyes wide with shock. "You saved me, again." Security surrounded them, weapons drawn, shouting orders. Taemin helped Lithara to her feet. She was shaking, her usual grace gone. He kept his hand on her arm, steadying her. Captain Huan appeared, his face grim. "Get her to a secure location, now!" They rushed Lithara to her quarters, a full security team surrounding them. Once inside, Taemin checked every corner, every vent, every possible entry point. Only when he was satisfied did he let himself relax slightly. Lithara sat on a chair, still trembling. The reality of how close she had come to dying was sinking in. Taemin knelt beside her, checking her for injuries even though he knew the shot had missed. "Hey," he said softly, making her look at him. "You are safe now. I promise." "How can you promise that?" she whispered. "They almost killed me. They will try again. And I will stop them again," Taemin said with absolute certainty. "As many times as it takes. I told you in the crucible. I will not lose you." Lithara's eyes filled with tears of light. She reached out and pulled him into an embrace. It was awkward at first. Their species did not show affection the same way. But Taemin wrapped his arms around her and held on tight. "Not again," he whispered into her shoulder. "I will not lose you again." After the attack in the garden, security on the station increased dramatically. Lithara's movements were restricted. She could only attend essential meetings and always with heavy protection. The summit continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Fear replaced hope. Taemin refused to let the investigation stop there. Someone had tried to kill Lithara in front of hundreds of witnesses. That was bold, desperate. It meant the attackers were running out of time. The peace talks were succeeding, and that terrified them. Late at night in Lithara's secured quarters, they began their own investigation. Taemin had called in his closest friend, Lieutenant Choi Dae-hyun, an intelligence specialist who owed him several favors. Dae-hyun was short and stocky, with quick eyes and quicker fingers on a keyboard. "You are asking me to hack into classified military files," Dae-hyun said, looking at the list Taemin had given him. "They will court-martial me." "Only if we get caught," Taemin pointed out. "That is not comforting." Lithara leaned forward. I can offer you immunity through Valerian diplomatic channels, and a significant reward, Daehyun sighed. I am not doing this for money. I am doing this because Taemin saved my life once and I owe him. Also because someone trying to kill a peace delegation is wrong. He cracked his knuckles. Give me 2 hours. While Daehyun worked, Taemin and Lithara discussed what they knew. The attacks had started when Lithara's connection to Taemin became known to certain people. Someone was using their past to create scandal, to undermine trust. But who? There are hardliners in my government, Lithara said. Military leaders who profit from war. They would lose power and wealth if peace comes. The same must be true on your side. Taemin nodded. Arms manufacturers, military contractors, career officers who built their reputations on fighting Valerians. They all have reasons to want this summit to fail. But working together? Lithara wondered. Humans and Valerians cooperating to stop peace? That seems smart, Taemin finished. They are using our hatred against us. While we focus on each other, they stay hidden in the shadows, pulling strings. Daehyun looked up from his computer screen. Found something. Financial records. Several shell companies have been moving massive amounts of money between Earth and Valerian space for years. The transactions accelerated 6 months ago, right when the summit was announced. Who controls the companies? Taemin asked. That is where it gets interesting, Daehyun said, turning the screen so they could see. The companies are registered in neutral territories. But the board members, some are retired Valerian military. Others are former human officers. They all have one thing in common. They got rich during the war. Lithara studied the names. She recognized 2 of them. Valerian generals who had opposed her father's peace initiative. These people are wealthy and powerful. They have resources, connections. If they are behind this, then we are in serious trouble, Taemin agreed. Keep digging, Daehyun. There has to be more. There was. Over the next several hours, they uncovered a conspiracy that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. The war between humans and Valerians had not started by accident. It had been carefully engineered by third parties. Arms dealers and war profiteers from neutral species had deliberately created incidents. False flag operations designed to make each side believe the other had attacked first. The Battle of Crucible Nebula, Daehyun said, pulling up classified files. According to this, both fleets received intelligence that the other was planning an ambush. Neither side actually planned anything. Someone fed false information to both militaries. Taemin felt sick. His squadron had died because of a lie. All those deaths. All that suffering. For profit, there is more, Daehyun continued grimly. According to these communications, they are planning a final operation. Something that will destroy the summit and reignite the war. What kind of operation? Lithara asked. Daehyun's face was pale. A weapon? Hidden somewhere on this station. If it activates, it will destroy the entire facility. Thousands will die, and each side will blame the other. The room fell silent. Taemin's mind raced through possibilities. A weapon big enough to destroy an orbital station would need significant power. It would need to be hidden somewhere with access to the station's main systems, and it would need to be activated at a specific moment for maximum impact. The signing ceremony, he said suddenly. They will activate it during the final treaty signing. When all the leaders are together. That is in 2 days, Lithara said, her voice tight with fear. Can we evacuate? Daehyun asked. Not without alerting the conspirators, Taemin said. If they know we are onto them, they might activate the weapon early. Or they might have backup plans we do not know about. He looked at Lithara. We need to find this weapon and disable it before the ceremony. And we need proof, Lithara added. Solid evidence we can show both governments. Otherwise, they will never believe us. They will think it is paranoia or sabotage. Daehyun pulled up station schematics. If I were hiding a weapon big enough to destroy this place, I would put it in the power core sector. It has the energy needed and it is restricted access. Fewer people to notice something unusual. Then that is where we start, Taemin said. They could not go through official channels. If the conspiracy included high-ranking officers on both sides, reporting it would only warn the enemy. They had to work alone in secret using resources they could trust. Over the next day, they gathered a small team. Taemin brought in 3 human soldiers he had served with during the war. Men and women he knew would not betray him. Lithara recruited 2 Valerian guards who had been with her since childhood. 7 people total, not nearly enough for what they were planning, They planned the operation carefully. They would investigate the power core during a shift change when security was lightest. If they found the weapon, they would disable it and gather evidence. If they encountered resistance, they would improvise. "This is dangerous," Lithara said the night before the mission. She and Tae-min were alone in her quarters reviewing the plans. "We could die." "Yes," Tae-min agreed. "We could? Are you afraid?" He considered the question honestly. "Yes, but I'm more afraid of what happens if we do nothing. If this weapon activates, thousands die. The war starts again. Everything we have worked for, everything you have sacrificed, it all means nothing." Lithara moved closer to him. They had grown comfortable with each other's presence over the past week. The differences between their species seemed less important now. "Can I tell you something?" she asked softly. "Of course. In Valerian culture, a life debt can become something more. If both people choose it freely, we call it a life bond. It is deeper than marriage. It means two souls have recognized they are meant to walk the same path." Taemin's heart beat faster. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that when I look at you, I do not see the soldier who saved me. I see the man I want beside me for whatever time we have left. Whether that is 50 years or 50 hours. She took his hand. "I am saying that I have fallen in love with you, Kang Taemin. And I know it is complicated and probably impossible and certainly ridiculous, but it is true." Taemin looked into her swirling nebula eyes and saw his own feelings reflected there. He had tried to ignore it, to stay professional. But somewhere between the garden attack and the late-night investigations, between the shared fear and the growing trust, he had fallen too. "I love you too," he said simply. "And you are right. It is complicated and impossible and ridiculous. But we will figure it out after we save the summit. After we stop the weapon, we will figure out how to make this work." Lithara smiled, and it was like watching a star be born. "Then we have something to fight for. Something worth surviving for." She leaned forward and they kissed for the first time. It was awkward and strange and perfect. Their biology was different, but the emotion behind it was universal. Tomorrow they would risk everything. But tonight they had each other, and that would have to be enough. The power core sector was cold and loud with the hum of massive generators. Taemin led his small team through the maintenance corridors, moving in silence. They wore maintenance uniforms instead of military gear, trying to blend in. But each person was armed and ready. Daehyun monitored security cameras from a remote location, guiding them through blind spots. "2 guards ahead at Junction 7, his voice crackled in Taemin's earpiece. "They should rotate out in 3 minutes. The team waited in the shadows. Taemin glanced at Lithara, who stood beside him with quiet determination. She had insisted on coming despite his protests. This was her peace, her dream. She would not hide while others risked their lives for it. The guards changed shifts. The team moved forward deeper into the restricted areas. The power core grew louder, a thrumming that Taemin could feel in his bones. They were close now. "There," one of the Valerian guards whispered, pointing. In a maintenance bay, partially hidden behind equipment, was something that did not belong. A device roughly 3 meters tall, covered in unmarked panels and blinking lights. Cables ran from it into the station's power grid. "That is it," Daehyun confirmed through the comm. "Energy readings match a gravitational implosion device. If that activates, it will create a miniature black hole. The station will collapse in on itself in seconds." Taemin approached carefully, scanning for traps. The device was sophisticated, clearly built by someone with access to advanced technology from multiple civilizations. "Daehyun, can we disarm it?" "I am analyzing the design now. Give me a minute." But they did not have a minute. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Many footsteps. Someone knew they were here. "Defensive positions," Taemin ordered quietly. His team spread out, taking cover behind equipment and support pillars. Lithara crouched beside him, her eyes glowing brighter with fear and adrenaline. The attackers came around the corner in force. Mercenaries from the look of them, a mix of species, all heavily armed. They opened fire immediately. Energy bolts lit up the chamber. Taemin's team returned fire and the power core sector became a war zone. "Keep them away from the device," Taemin shouted. If a stray shot hit it, the weapon might activate early. The firefight was brutal in close quarters. Taemin moved from cover to cover, taking precise shots, protecting Lithara while trying to reach the weapon. One of his soldiers went down, wounded but alive. A Valerian guard took a hit to the shoulder but kept fighting. Then Taemin saw him, standing at the back of the mercenary group, directing them with hand signals. A human officer in the uniform of an admiral, Park Seok. Taemin recognized him from the files Daehyun had found. A decorated war hero who had lost his family in a Valerian attack. Seok! Taemin shouted over the weapon's fire. It is over. We know about the conspiracy. We have evidence, Seok laughed bitterly. Evidence? You think evidence matters? My wife and daughter are dead because of them. He pointed at Lithara. Because of her people. And you want me to make peace? To forget? The war was a lie, Taemin shouted back. Your family died because arms dealers wanted profit. Not because the Valerians hated us. We were all manipulated. I do not care, Seok screamed. I want revenge. I want them to hurt like I hurt. He pulled out a remote detonator. The signing ceremony starts in 10 minutes. Every leader of both civilizations will be in that hall. When this weapon activates, they all die. Then the war begins again and I get my revenge. Taemin made a decision. He stepped out from cover, hands raised, walking towards Seok. Then you will have to go through me first. Taemin, no. Lithara cried out, but he kept walking. You think I will not shoot you? Seok asked, his weapon trained on Taemin's chest. I think you are a good man who is broken by grief. Taemin said calmly, still approaching. I think you lost everything and the pain made you desperate. I understand that, Admiral. I lost my whole squadron. I watched my friends die. I know what that does to a person. Then you should understand why I am doing this. I understand the anger, Taemin said, but I also know that more death will not bring them back. More war will not heal the wound. It will just create more people like us. More people who lost everything. More pain spreading across the galaxy like a disease. He was close now, just a few meters from Seok. The mercenaries looked uncertain, waiting for orders. The firefight had stopped, everyone watching this confrontation. 10 years ago, I saved a Valerian girl. Taemin continued. I should have left her to die. Every rule said to leave her. But I looked at her, and I saw someone who deserved a chance to live. And that choice, that one moment of choosing compassion over hatred, it led to this peace summit. It gave us a chance to end the cycle. You are a fool, Seok said, but his hand shook on the detonator. Maybe, Taemin agreed. But I would rather be a fool who chooses hope than a wise man who chooses revenge. Your family would not want this, Admiral. They would want you to live, to heal, to make sure no other families are destroyed like yours was. For a long moment, Seok said nothing. Tears ran down his face. His finger hovered over the detonator button. Then slowly he lowered his hand. I cannot do it, he whispered. I wanted to, but I cannot. Taemin reached out carefully and took the detonator. Seok collapsed to his knees, sobbing. The mercenaries dropped their weapons, seeing their leader broken. Daehyun, Taemin said into his comm. We have the detonator. Can you disarm the weapon now? On it, Daehyun responded. Give me 5 minutes. Security forces arrived, alerted by the weapon's fire. They took Seok and the mercenaries into custody. Taemin showed them the evidence Daehyun had compiled. The conspiracy, the financial records, the communications, everything. Captain Bai Kwan arrived, looking shocked and grim. This goes all the way to the top, he said, reading through the files. We have traitors in high command on both sides. But we stopped them, Lithara said, moving to stand beside Taemin. The summit can continue, Daehyun's voice came through. Devices disarmed. We are safe. The signing ceremony happened 2 hours later than scheduled, but it happened. With the conspiracy exposed, many of the hardliners were arrested. Both governments committed to investigating everyone involved, no matter how powerful. Taemin stood at his post, watching as the human president and the Valerian emperor signed the peace treaty. It was a historic moment, witnessed by billions across both civilizations. But Taemin was not thinking about history. He was thinking about the future. A week later, after the delegates had returned home and the station began to quiet, Taemin found Lithara in the observation deck. She was watching the stars, her expression peaceful but sad. You are leaving tomorrow, he said, joining her. Yes. My father needs me at home. There is much work to do. She looked at him. Come with me. Taemin blinked in surprise. What? The Valerian Emperor has granted you citizenship. Noble status. In recognition of saving my life and stopping the conspiracy. She smiled. But more than that, there is a new program. A joint human-Valerian exploration initiative. Ships with mixed crews exploring unknown space together, building trust through cooperation. And you want me on one of these ships? I want you on my ship, Lithara said. I will be commanding the first exploration vessel. We will need someone who understands both cultures. Someone who can bridge the gap between our people. She took his hand. Someone I trust with my life. Taman looked down at their joined hands, human and Valerian, two species that had been enemies now working together. What about the life bond you mentioned? Lithara's eyes glowed brighter. In Valerian tradition, we would need to perform a ceremony. In front of witnesses, we would declare our intention to walk the same path for all our days. It is permanent, binding. Are you ready for that? Taman thought about his life. The war, the loss, the pain. And then he thought about the moment in the Crucible Nebula when he chose to save an enemy. How that choice had led him here, to this woman, to this future. Yes, he said, I am ready. They were married in a ceremony that blended human and Valerian traditions. Captain Juan was there, shaking his head but smiling. Dahyun served as best man. The Valerian Emperor himself attended via hologram, giving his blessing. 3 months later, the exploration ship Harmony launched from Earth orbit. Its crew was half human, half Valerian. Its mission was to explore the uncharted regions beyond known space. And its command team was Captain Lithara and First Officer Kang Tae-min. As they stood on the bridge watching the stars ahead, Lithara turned to Tae-min. Are you nervous? About exploring the unknown with people from two civilizations that recently wanted to kill each other? A little, he admitted with a smile. She laughed, the sound like bells. We will be fine. After all, we have already done the impossible. What is that? She looked into his eyes, and he saw the same nebulae he had seen through a cracked pod window 10 years ago, but now they were filled with love and hope. We proved that compassion is stronger than hatred, she said. That one person choosing kindness can change everything. That is the most powerful force in the universe, Tae-min, and we have it. He kissed her, surrounded by their mixed crew, all of them working together toward a common goal. The war was over. The peace was beginning. And somewhere ahead in the infinite dark, their future was waiting to be discovered. Together, they would find it.